Hello and welcome to Cyber Threat Thursday. I'm Kristin Judge, the CEO and founder of the Cybercrime Support Network. And I am so excited to have my guest this week is a dear friend, an incredible cybercrime fighter. She's been doing what I've hoped to do for many years already. She's serving people and making sure victims of cybercrime, identity theft, have the resources they need. So it is such an honor to have my dear friend and colleague, Eva, here with us from the Identity Theft Resource Center. Eva, would you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little about your background?
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Kristin. I am thrilled to be here as well. So I'm Eva Velasquez, President and CEO of the Identity Theft Resource Center. I've been in the fraud avenger space for, I hate to say it, like that. Decades, or identity avenger, if you prefer. I started my career back in the 80s at local law enforcement and spent 21 years at the San Diego District Attorney's Office, with the last 11 of those years focused on economic crimes and doing the investigations. And, you know, at that time, when I was focused on getting the bad guy, I really realized that the victims that I was dealing with needed so much more support, and they had different needs. They needed other resources, and they needed help in other ways, not just getting the bad guy. Super important role, and I loved doing it. But after that, I just decided that I needed to get more involved in consumer protection education and helping victims of nonviolent crimes to recover and make their lives whole. So fast forward, I've been in this space for about 12 years, in the last 8 years running the ITRC, and it's a pleasure for me to be here.
Great. And tell us, what is the ITRC, Identity Theft Resource Center? Say that 4 times fast, right?
Yeah, it's a tongue twister. It's a tongue twister, but it is. It's just what it sounds like. If you are a victim of an identity crime, we can help you. All of our services are completely free to the public. So we are a 501c3 organization. And while victim services and victim remediation and recovery is at the heart of our mission, we understand that there's just this long spectrum of needs. And not only will we help you if the worst happens, we really want to reduce the rates. And the only way to do that is to get much more involved in looking at, first of all, consumer education. How do we educate end users of a lot of platforms, online platforms, and just about their identity credentials in general, so they understand how to use them and how to protect them. But we also are looking at what are the root causes. The symptom, the actual remediation, that's a symptom, but what is causing all of this? So we get very involved in research, in looking at the core problems. We issue reports at least quarterly. It really depends on what's going on. We have a data breach report that we issue quarterly and annually. We have our aftermath report. Sometimes when we're looking at very specific issues, we might say we need to do more research here. And we use all of that to inform our victim services so that we know what's happening, what else do we have to address, and how are people, what are their questions? Where are they going with this, and how do they engage with technology? I actually have a great example on that note. We started providing services for specialty populations, blind, low vision folks, deaf, hard of hearing folks. And we really learned that how you engage with technology, there's so many factors that go into it. And they can, get so granular. Just understanding how different screen readers work and how some of them are capable of reading the email headers, but that's a setting, and telling these folks, hey, set that setting so that you are reading the full email header so you really know where it's coming from and it's not a spoof. Those little things that, we didn't even think of made a huge difference to this population. They were like, oh, that's how I can tell if it's really coming from, my friend or someone in my personal network that I know, but it's got their name, but the email address doesn't match.
So using our typical advice isn't the same for everyone. And that's what you've done, is you've gone and drilled down a little bit deeper, because you actually have people that answer the phone, right? And answer text messages from people. When we hear from victims, the one thing they always say is, well, I reported here, I reported here, I reported there, but no one talked to me about it. A lot of people want to talk to someone. Tell us about what your call center does and how people interact with you.
I mean, that's the great thing about having boots on the ground, is that we are hearing from victims, and not just victims, concerned consumers as well, people who want to reduce their risk, but we're hearing from them every day. And we try to make it really easy, however you want to engage with us. So we have the toll-free number, you SMS, text to chat. We have a free app. We have live chat on our website. You can email us. You can direct message us on social media, whatever way you're comfortable talking. But by far and away, it's the people that actually call into the call center. There's different reasons. Sometimes they really don't use technology. They don't engage with it. And so picking up the phone is one of the best ways that they can communicate.
Yeah. Telling someone who's not very literate online to go fill out a form. I worry about all these people with COVID vaccines. You can only get a COVID vaccine if you go online. Well, not everybody goes online, but
exactly.
Yeah, keep going.
So that's actually an entirely different conversation that I'd love to have. And that is, for many of us, we've all shifted to online, and for business and industry, you can pick your customer. Government can't choose their customers. Government needs to meet the needs of every single person in the population. And there are still a lot of people that don't have access to or can't make effective use of the internet. So, and that is part of why the call center, that's still a method of communication for us, and it will be in the long term.
Yeah.
If you listen to some industry leaders, they're like, nobody wants to talk on the phone anymore. And I'm just
nobody who's 25, I would say. My 25 and 23-year-old, you ask them to call someone, like, wait, call them on the phone? Like, talk to them? They don't understand that kind of thing. They'll like, well, I'll use a web form. And even when we did our 2-on-1 pilots, we found that 1 out of every 8 people wanted to talk to someone on the phone. The rest of them wanted to use the web information. But that 1 out of 8 is still really important. And the people that want to talk on the phone, they really need that kind of one-on-one service. So when someone calls your call center, what happens? Talk us through that a little bit.
Well, and we handle a wide variety of issues. So whatever it is, you're a victim and you're going, I need to understand how I can fix this, or I've heard about this and I want to understand how to minimize my risk. We will listen to you and give you a very specifically tailored plan that's based on your needs, based on what's happening, how you engage with technology, what other resources you have available to you. So it's not just the kind of cookie cutter, one size fits all. It's what is actually happening to you. And once we hear what the immediate issue is, this is particularly relevant for actual victim remediation. Yeah. There is so much more, depending on what identity credentials have been misused, that you are now vulnerable. So many other areas that we don't just stop with, here's how you solve that one problem. We'll walk you through that first, but then we want to educate you on here's how you reduce your risk in other ways. And not just again, a blanket statement. It's based on what identity credentials were misused, so that if it's your social security number, boy, and your date of birth, boy, you are vulnerable to a lot of other types of identity crimes. And here are some of the great ways that you can try to reduce that risk.
Let's talk someone through. All right, for people that are watching that aren't identity experts like you are. So, all right, so someone's social security number and birth date were stolen, and they know that. They call you. What kind of things should they be looking at? Or pick a different example. What kinds of things do you all talk to people about? Give them some real life examples.
Well, certainly people will call us when they've received a data breach notification letter or email or however that is. And they go, even when it's written on the letter, and they'll say, okay, I understand that this says that my medical insurance number, my patient number, my social security number, and my debit card number were all compromised in my name and date of birth.
Now what?
Compromised. Yeah. But I don't even know what that means. And so we will break it apart and go, here is your risk. Here is what someone other than you with access to that information, what they can do with that information. They can open new lines of credit in your name. So we're going to recommend that you freeze your credit. They could potentially get medical services in your name. So we're going to recommend that you call your medical provider and your insurance company and ask them what their process is to flag your account. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to go through what do we generally say, because we don't do generalizations. We will listen, specifically. And I think the other important piece to remember is that we go very deep. We build relationships with the folks that contact us. It's not one and done. We don't have time limits. We're not going to rush to try to get you off the phone in 10 minutes. If you need an hour of that advisor's time to walk through the process to make sure you really understand it, frankly, to make sure that you're acknowledging all of the emotions that go along with being a victim of a crime. Our folks, they're trauma informed, they're empathetic, they understand. In fact, I have heard in the call center, folks who will, I remember one of my advisors hearing her say, "That's okay. You can cry. I'll be here with you." Yeah. And then she gave her the pep talk. And when you're done, I want you to wash your face and put your makeup on. And then it was sort of like insert identity theft in my ear, It was like, and then we're going to do these things. And sometimes
it's an emotional response. They're a victim of a crime. Yeah, it's emotional. Wow.
Well, and that's one of the other things that we're trying to get through to the thought leaders and the decision makers, particularly the folks who allocate funds, federal funding and resources for organizations like yours and mine, is that this notion that being a victim of an identity or cyber crime is just not a big deal. It's, it's not a violent crime, so it's nothing. That's just patently false.
So not true.
And while I would never equate an economic crime to a serious violent crime, I understand those are very, very different. The economic crimes actually do have a significant emotional impact. And that's what our aftermath report is. Every year we survey the folks from the previous year that we helped, and we do a really deep dive into what were the emotional implications. What were the behavioral, the physical? Did you, what was the kind of the lost opportunity costs? What did this particular incident, what was the domino effect in your life? And we're releasing this year's report in just a couple of weeks. It'll be out next month. And one of the things that was really shocking to me this year in the trend data was that, look, we've always had a number of folks who've reported that they actually felt suicidal when they were going through this process. But this is the first year I've seen where it was in the double digits. It was 10%. 10% of people who went through this felt like ending their life was a viable option because it was so overwhelming and they didn't know any other way to handle the problem.
Yeah, and I wonder if we're feeling
deal.
Yeah, no, that's not, no. And I wonder if it's also because we're at sort of our wits' end with the COVID scares and the pandemic and wondering about our safety and the safety of our families, or we've lost people in our families to the pandemic. I wonder if, everyone's hearing about how we're all more on edge. And then if something like an identity theft, which you probably could have handled 2 years ago, but if you're at your wits' end, maybe you've also been living alone for a year and a half, you don't feel supported by people. There's a lot of other extenuating circumstances for what we've been through in the past year that, unfortunately, I'm not surprised to hear that, because we're all suffering more emotionally to start with. So we don't necessarily have the ability to deal with the identity theft even more than before.
We are resilience for these life-changing events. It has definitely, we can all only take so much. So you have this on top of it. And then I think the other piece that we have to recognize is that financial instability, it has increased significantly due to the pandemic. And look, for anyone that doesn't realize this, being a victim of an identity crime in and of itself creates tremendous financial instability. Because you may not have access to the money in your checking account. If your bank account is compromised by a thief, taken over, you may not have access to your cash that you need to live on. I think the big story when it comes to the pandemic and how it's affecting people is unemployment identity theft.
Yeah, talk about that, because I don't think a lot of people quite understand how big of a deal this is right now. Tell us what it is and what you see happening.
I can say from my perspective, it is the biggest deal and the biggest issue that we need to be talking about right now. So unemployment identity theft is a section of government benefits identity theft. And this is where someone misuses your identity credentials to apply for government goods or services. It's been around for a long time. This is not a brand new type of identity theft. Unemployment identity theft, we've handled a handful of cases throughout the years. For context, in 2019, ITRC had 19 cases that came into the call center. That's about our average, a couple a month here and there. In 2020, we had over 900.
And those are just the people that found you. I mean, this is a slice of what's really happening out there. And the criminals, well, the criminals, they live in all kinds of other countries. Some may live here, but they see that $1 trillion of US money is going to unemployment. They just follow the money, just like, why do you rob a bank? That's where the money is, right? They're just following that money trail. So if there is a big amount of money going into any system, would you say that the identity theft criminals follow it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, fraud in general, anytime you put a big pot of money towards something, there's going to be fraud. And I think that to the degree that it was discussed prior, I think the fraud tolerance rate was probably a little bit higher because everyone was incentivized to get the money in the hands of the people that need it. So they lowered the authentication processes and verification processes, which in theory, that sounds really good. That sounds like that's going to help more people. Right. But what it did was create this incredible opportunity for the thieves to just use all of the identity credentials that have been compromised in previous data breaches and just hammer those antiquated state systems. Yeah. And they were able, I mean, the estimates from the government are at about 63 billion with a B across.
And the fraud.
This is just for one subtype, a subtype of a subtype. So not just fraud, this is for identity theft and for unemployment identity theft in particular. 63 billion. But if you talk to experts that are working in more of those systems, they're saying it's going to be closer to 100, maybe even 200 billion.
So there goes a lot of the chunk of what we were giving to try and help people, and now it's out the window.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's tough.
And I think and the consequences to that, because that's how we got off on this track.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, a lot of folks were reaching out to us because they were calling their state unemployment department to file a legitimate claim. Right. And they would eventually get through and then find out, oh, you can't file that claim because you've already been receiving it. And they're going, no, I haven't. So now they have to wait even longer. And these are dollars for essential needs. These are to pay rent.
They're unemployed. They're unemployed. So they need this money to live right now. Yeah, to support their families, to keep a roof over their head. So they don't have time to go through the usual year that it takes to get their identity cleaned up. This is immediate needs. And the state can't just make up some more money. That money's gone. This is why cybercrime is such an economic crisis that people don't really talk about in that way. And I want to keep us talking about it. These are billions of dollars that are leaving the US economy every year, coming out of your pocket, my pocket, the pocket of our companies, our small businesses on Main Street. People can't save for retirement or for school or for extra medical costs. Like, this is money leaving our country. Yep. And it has an impact on the entire ecosystem. So we can't just think about, oh, well, I've never been a victim of cybercrime or identity theft, so it's not that big a deal. No, because all that money is gone, your whole Main Street might be impacted because people can't go spend money on a haircut or go out to a movie or what, it has ripple effects. We need to talk about it, an economic crisis.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And those domino effects, I think that's the hard part to see. You see this thing occurring over here and go, okay, well, that's the pain point, that's the problem. But, to your point, it then impacts not only the individual, it impacts their family, their community. Yep. And then when we extrapolate that, because it's millions of people, this is not a crime that barely ever happens. It's tens of millions of people every single year.
Every year.
And to your point, I mean, if we calculate that it's 100 billion in losses just from this one program, imagine the good that
one program. I know, just that one program. Oh my goodness. So
I didn't talk about the PPP loan fraud, the EIDL fraud, the IRS stimulus fraud, which we're getting all of those calls as well. But right now it's been unemployment. And for anybody, we've talked to a couple people who were like, yes, but that was last year. No. This is ongoing.
Yeah, right.
It is escalating. So
Yeah.
it's still happening right now. It's actually growing. I think in Q1 of this year, we received over 600 calls on this issue.
So at the end of the day, we were just part of the Identity Management Day, right? This week.
Yes.
So if state and local government could actually and federal government could correctly ID someone, and we had better ways to authenticate people online. Have we not been talking about this since I got into cyber? Why do we still not have the best way? I mean, companies, come on, let's get to it, and we need to give the state and local government and federal the money to buy the equipment they need to actually validate that if you are applying for unemployment, it's really you. We've got to be close. Are we getting any better at this? Do you know?
The good news is there are more conversations about it. It's been an ongoing conversation, but now that we've got this sense of urgency, and so they are looking at investment. It's that with cyber, it's that whole short-term mindset. Right. I'm not going to invest in this because it's not affecting me right now. Or I did invest in this and nothing happened. Why am I paying for it? It's like, oh my gosh, that's why nothing happened.
Well, that's why you have car insurance, not because it's going to keep you from getting an accident, but you may never use it. That's a good thing, right? So
exactly.
But it's hard to make these cases. Now, you were talking about funding, and we both know that we both had funding from the Department of Justice and other federal and state agencies around victims. But the Victim of Crime Act fund has really been decimated, and it's hard to justify using that particular pot of money when there could be domestic violence shelters shutting down because that pot has gotten so small. And those are some of the conversations we've been having with state VOCA applicants and also state VOCA administrators, is that pot is really low. So what do you think about the need for line items that support victims of cyber online fraud? Do we need to start elevating these victims as the most actually growing victim class in the country, and start paying attention to this from a financial standpoint?
Absolutely. We need to look at it as an investment, and we need to, the decision makers need to understand that any dollars that they put into these programs is an investment into the people who are going to be assisted and their future and their economic health. And, again, it's short-sighted, but we did a little analysis. This is kind of a back of the napkin analysis here, but we looked at, just from Department of Justice, Office of Victims of Crime funding types, back through 2010, how much money was specifically available to victims of identity and cyber crimes. And there were a few very small number, like 3. But when we looked at the dollar amount next to the number of victims on an annual basis, the investment into their recovery was $1.40 per person. That's how much we are putting into helping folks to recover from this crime. And my bigger fear is really for low, moderate income folks, because there are other recourses for victims, paid services, attorneys, those types of things. And those can have value. They can do a lot of things you don't have to invest as much time. So it's basically like, do I wash my dog and bathe her myself and buy the shampoo and pay for the water, or do I take her to a groomer? It's kind of that's an gross oversimplification.
Right. But, yeah, I get that.
But they can have value. But there are so many people that do not have the disposable income to pay $10, $15, $20, $25 a month for that, insurance or that service should they need it. And if programs for these victims, like mine, like yours, like so many others that are out there, are not available to provide those free resources, where are these folks going to go?
They don't know where. That's it. There's nowhere for them to go besides a few organizations. Yeah, we hear from victims. They say, well, I called this organization, I called this, and tried to report here, report there, and nobody called me back. So that's why we exist, is to figure out, where do I go? I've been a victim of cybercrime. Where do I go? And we point them on fightcybercrime.org to folks like you, to folks like other resources, places where they should be reporting. If it's an IRS scam, then they go to the specific IRS form. There's so many different places to go. If it's something that happened on Facebook, we send them to the Facebook form. And we're sending out referrals, I think 17,000 or so a quarter. People are coming to our site and then clicking to go to the place to actually report. Because we are only seeing probably, less than 2% of people actually reporting. So we feel like at CSN that if we can increase the reporting to these federal agencies, then we can actually see what's happening, talk to Congress and say, look, we're not estimating how much money people are losing. Here's the actual numbers. And, it was just 700,000 people that reported to FBI last year lost over 4.2 billion. That's just 700,000 people lost 4.2 billion. Let that sink in for a minute. Right. Now let's add up all the other people that didn't report. When 1 in 4 people is a victim of cybercrime every year, it's hundreds of billions of dollars. So we just have to keep fighting. And I know you and I are going to continue working together on all kinds of projects, especially around funding and serving and building. And, I'm so excited to keep working with you. Tell me a little bit, give me a sneak peek into something called Vivian.
Oh, well, this is, speaking of resources, we are extremely appreciative of the funding that we received from DOJ, OVC.
Yes, we are too.
Vivian is the Virtual Victim Assistance Network, and she's a chatbot. She's an AI that can help with after hours and weekends, because as a nonprofit, I wish we could be open 24/7 and provide those one-on-one services.
If you had more money, you could. But
we could, but you gotta manage it. We've got to stay lean, and so she's really the answer to getting people faster service during those hours. And it is not to replace the people, the actual advisors. She supplements them. So if you are reaching out to us on our website at midnight, your time, we don't have live advisors staffing the phone, but Vivian will be there. And maybe it's just a quick question about what can an identity thief do if I lost my driver's license? We have all of that written down. We have a help center on our website, very popular, very heavily trafficked, and a lot of folks can find what they need just going online and going, okay, here's the forms that I need. So it's set up there. Not everybody can. It's a little, it's complicated. Sometimes you don't even know what you need. So
some people just want the easier, give me a quick answer. I got to go. I've got 17 things going on. That's okay.
Just want to know, point me in the right direction. Yeah. And Vivian is equipped to do that. She can also, kind of get you started. Like, oh, I heard that, this happened to me. My car was burglarized and my laptop was stolen. She can start you thinking about what you need to consider. And here's some steps. But then we follow up. A live advisor will follow up and touch base with you. Make sure you get all the help that you need. So Vivian is in beta testing right now. She will be launched very, very soon. And we're really hoping that she helps with a lot of those after hours inquiries, because we've had live chat on the website for a number of years now, since 2014. And when we're offline and it says we're offline, people will still leave us a message. They want to do it in that moment and not have to remember to do it. And then we follow up with them. So we're hoping that those folks that are leaving us a message on our after hours, they'll get some immediate help and maybe feel empowered to take some of those steps at that moment. Because when you find out, you want to do something about it. Yeah, you don't just go, oh, it's not a big deal.
No. And a lot of people, they're working from 9 to 5. And so by the time they have a chance to think about it, it might be 10 o'clock at night. So that's fantastic that you can at least get them started on a path. So Eva, to close us out here, I want to agree with you, without the Office of Victims of Crime, neither one of our organizations would be where we are right now. So we support them to get continued funding for cybercrime victims. I know there's some stuff coming out of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission. There is a recommendation to the Biden-Harris administration in there that says they should create a grant cycle for cybercrime victims. So, we're getting somewhere. It's actually written down in an official document, which we've been talking about for so many years now, right? So we're getting somewhere. And I think, there's a lot of people that are understanding, look, this is going to happen to me or someone I care about, or they already know someone. It's just a matter of numbers. But thank you for all of the incredible research. Demetria put up your website address and your phone number there. So I want people to go look at the research. What's so amazing about your nonprofit is you not only serve people, you have the numbers behind it. You're not just saying, oh, this is what we think would be a good idea. You research, you spend time on building out things that everybody can benefit from. So it is such an honor to have you on Cyber Threat Thursday, but it's even more of an honor to work with you and be your friend. So keep up the good work. And yes, love you much. So this is great. And together we are changing the world. Let's just go keep doing it. And thank you so much for spending time today with us at Cyber Threat Thursday. Again, I'm Kristin Judge, the founder of the Cybercrime Support Network. Amazing. Eva from the Identity Theft Resource Center was with us today. Please check out her resources and tell your friends who've been a victim of identity theft to go there. And we can't wait to meet Vivian.
Oh, it was such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Take care.